like to welcome you to the panel session 4, which is electrification of the transport and green mobility. My name is Ljubomir Stanislavov. I am the CEO of the Automotive Cluster Bulgaria, and I'm happy to host such panel in the Green Transition Conference for the third time in a row. And actually, I believe this is one of the most interesting, inspiring, and at the same time frightening time in the automotive industry. A lot of things are going which makes the prediction for the OEM companies, for the suppliers, and for the other companies which are part of the transportation sector almost impossible. And this will be, and those disruptions will be the main part of discussion at the moment. So before we start, I would like very quickly to present who will be the speakers today. So we will have basically two keynote speeches. One is from Mr. Jan Tusik, who is the Deputy Director General for Climate Action. He will join online in a minute. Then we have Elvire Fabry, Senior Research Fellow from Jacques Delors Institute. She will also join online for the second round of the discussions because it's about geopolitics, trade war, and so on. And then we have a number of gentlemen. So I will start with Mr. Emanuel Fondukis. He is member of the board of the Automotive Cluster. He was basically the head of the board until recently, and also he is the general manager of ETEM Gestamp Aluminium Extrusion Company. Mario De Martino, he's the general manager of Porsche Bulgaria and Porsche Interauto BG. Mr. Petr Vitanov, who will join any second. He was here, he was member of the European Parliament until 2024. We did a lot of efforts in the transportation sector and policy with him. Mr. Cristian Krstev, he was a Minister of Transport, Deputy Mayor of Sofia for the transport. I was wondering how to present him today, but I think he's one of the visionary in the transportational sector, so he will explain more about himself in a minute. Mr. Konstantinos, this is hard for me, Hajitodis, sorry for my bad Greek. He's coming, he's the European Affairs Manager for Motor Oil Group. Once again, sorry for my bad pronunciation. Ivo Tsachev, he's expert, head of e-mobility solutions at Total Energy. Mr. Petr Georgiev, strategic alliances and regulatory sustainability at Ampeco. And lastly, Mr. Nikolai Lavrov, co-founder and CEO of Autowear Lab. So now in the beginning, I would like to start with Mr. Jan Tusik, once again, Deputy Director General for Climate Action in Europe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanislav. Good afternoon to Sofia. I hope you can hear me well. And sorry I cannot be with you in person. I would very much have loved to be there and to engage in the discussion on this indeed very, very timely and dynamic topic of the clean mobility transition. But I'm happy that I'm at least able to share my thoughts over the screen with you. So to start with, the electrification is very much at the heart of the decarbonization efforts. We as the EU have the climate neutrality target for 2050, and we are pursuing that target through legislation. And one part of the legislation is related to mobility. Related to electrification are also the broader questions. One is about the economic competitiveness in the EU and the fact that we have very high energy prices across across Europe compared to many competitors. So there is an effort to bring down the prices, and there's also an effort to become more energy secure. And these are coming very much hand in hand with decarbonization, whereby we see that if we are able to move to a production of locally produced electricity from clean sources, typically renewables, this would decrease the energy costs. This will increase our energy security, and this will provide the electricity that can then feed the economy, and that very much includes the mobility as well. We can see that globally the transition to electromobility is a very important trend. According to the International Energy Agency, 1/5 of sales of cars in 2024 was coming as electric cars, the battery electric cars, and there's a prediction that by the year 2035, half of the cars sold around the world will be electric. So this is a very clear trend, and this is also in response to the fact that the share of transport in the global emissions of greenhouse gases is worrying, and it has increased since the 1990 reference year. So we have to deal with emissions from transport as we are dealing with emissions from other sectors. And this goes for cars, but this goes also for ships and for planes, and they are all part of the landscape of European regulation of emissions. What we have been looking into as the European Commission since the beginning of the year is to find a good business case and to make the connection between decarbonization and competitiveness. And this has started with the competitiveness compass in January. Then we moved to the Clean Industrial Deal adoption in the end of February, and together with that, Affordable Energy Action Plan. And as I mentioned, the affordable energy is a big concern both for citizens and for industries. Right after that, the Commission has adopted the Industrial Action Plan for the automotive sector on the 5th of March, and it has several pillars. It looks into what can be done in terms of innovation and digitalization in the automotive. How can we further advance the clean mobility shift? How can we strengthen the competitiveness and the resilience of the supply chain, but also looking at skills and reskilling and the social aspects of the automobility, and last but not least, making sure that we have a level playing field. And we know that when we look at imports of many products, including cars, there is a strong dependency towards China in particular, and we want to make sure that we are able to operate in the level playing field. So this was the Industrial Action Plan adopted in March, and it is being implemented. There will be another strategic dialogue with the automotive industry that will continue right after the summer holiday period, and this will be a moving space. The other thing I wanted to touch on in these opening remarks is the social dimension of the clean mobility. And of course, we know that the access to transportation and being able to move around is very important, and is disproportionate burden to people living in cities or living in suburban or rural areas, and this needs to be taken into account. And this is indeed taken into account in the other part of the European regulation, and that's the so-called ETS2, the new system for emission trading that is looking at transport and building sectors, and that will enter into force from 2027. As part of the ETS2, well, first of all, you can see that it deals with transport, and there is a strong connection between the electrification of vehicles and the solutions to reduce the emissions from the transport sector. But there is a very strong component in the ETS2 system that relates to the social dimension. the newly established Social Climate Fund is a pan-European vehicle which will be receiving the revenues from the ETS, already from the existing ETS, but also then later from ETS2, and that will basically finance the transition, in particular for vulnerable groups of population, and that goes both for the mobility and for housing solutions. The Commission is also very much aware of the question of the transport poverty, and that's why we have adopted about 3 weeks ago a recommendation how to address transport poverty. And what we are trying to advance is the transport solutions which are holistic, which can also build on the opportunities of local renewables production, namely photovoltaics on roofs, how it can relate to charging the cars, using the car as part of the energy system, as a kind of battery, but also looking at solutions that will be gradually coming in terms of the second-hand electromobiles that will be more affordable for poorer sectors of the society, and that would again stimulate both the market and the gradual modernization and cleaning of the fleets of cars. And this is I spoke about the European solutions, but there is a very important part of the role of the member states. And the member states will also be finalizing their social climate plans, which we are supposed to receive by the end of this month, and then we will be looking at that set of social climate plans together and see how they correspond with what is required by the European legislation. But there's also specific solutions of social support. One which we see quite promising is the so-called social leasing schemes. So enabling support for the households in buying new cars with some alleviation of the economic impacts. And there is a lot of space. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for the 27 member states, but there is a lot of interesting practices where there can be exchange of knowledge, and we have also established processes in the EU where we can exchange the knowledge in between the countries, what works, what doesn't work, and they can learn from one another about their social climate plans. The other dimension, which is very important, is the infrastructure and how we can support the infrastructure as regards recharge, in particular, how to make sure that the network is sufficient. There is the legislation, so-called AFIR, for instance. There's also the question of storage of electricity. And again, what I mentioned, the storage from the photovoltaics, the charging of the cars. So it's not just important that we have sufficient number of electric cars, but also that they can be charged and they can deliver the services that people expect from them. What is still coming is the Sustainable Transport Investment Plan. This is in the one of the outcomes of the strategic dialogue for the automotive sector. And we are also rolling out the public-private tool, which is called Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Facility. So to see where the public sector working together with the private sector can join hands in making sure that we have the infrastructure that responds to the needs as the electromobility evolves. The final financial instrument I want to mention is the Innovation Fund, which is again financed from the emission trading system, and we have made the remaining provision of the Innovation Fund linked to the battery booster program. So we want to promote the deployment of batteries, the production of batteries in Europe, and to again feed into the better opportunities for clean mobility. of course, it's not enough just to have the infrastructure and to have the cars, but it is also important to have the demand. And what we have seen and what was the discussion in the strategic dialogue, that the demand needs to be corresponding, and there needs to be sufficient demand for the clean cars. And there's several elements to it. One is how the corporate fleets can be stimulated, how the public sector fleets can be part of creating that demand. And of course, this is all important also for the producers to have the predictability, to see that when they invest, that they will be able to sell the products. And the mood that has existed last year, which we see now changing again, was the uncertainty. Are the targets going to stay? Are they going to be relaxed? So I think that with maintaining that predictability and regulatory clarity is very important, and that's why we believe that the targets which were originally approved agreed that they should be in place. In particular, I'm talking about the 2035 target. Part of it is what we have made one change in the CO2 from cars regulation. We have agreed to extend the compliance period of 2025 from 1 year into 3 years, meaning that each of the companies will need to comply with the targets, but they would be able to comply with them over the 3-year period of time. Meaning, if they cannot comply in 2025, they will need to catch up in 2026 and 2027. So this is maintaining the targets, but easing the compliance, that it can happen in 3 years instead of 1. And this is again very much in the logic of transport being part of the whole solutions and of the Fit for 55 logic, that we need to move to climate neutrality, and we need to stick to the targets and see how we can best achieve them. So I think I would leave it there. I hope that it's a good food for thought for your discussion, and finding solutions and ideas how to further advance in clean transportation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tusik. I had been very impressed because it is exactly right on the topics, like for example, the Innovation Fund and the batteries. And here there are even from Bulgaria projects for LFP, lithium-ion batteries, or the strategic dialogue, which was made in March this year. And some of the suppliers here from Bulgaria, they felt immediately a boost from their orders because of the results of this strategic dialogue. With this, I would like to open the first round of questions for our discussion. And this is about the second wave of electrification. From our opinion, it has already started. If you see the sales from in Europe for April, for May, already the sales of electric cars started to went up again. And there are several reasons for that. Number one, I would start with the results of this strategic dialogue for the future of the automotive industry. Number two, I would mention the new technologies. So you know that now there are a number of more affordable cars, or cars with 700-800 kilometers of range. I think very soon we'll see the first ones with 1,000 kilometers of range. So range anxiety is not so valid anymore like before. And lastly, even you had spoke about China. Last week we had our yearly automotive international conference, and the name China was at least 100 times spoken. So what is coming from there is, I think at the same time, is kind of inspiring, because I think already 97% of the people in China are planning that their next purchase will be a full electric vehicle, but also at the same time frightening, because there is a severe competition, which is also coming slowly to Europe too. So I would like to start the discussion with our panelists. So first, I would start with Mr. Fountoukis. So your company has experienced the benefits and also the down from the electrification, because I think ETEM Gestamp is the fastest growing company in Bulgarian automotive sector. But I'm sure that there are a lot of challenges. So, please.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Lubo. Yes, I think it's true. We are quite active in the. We're supporting the electrification in general of the automotive industry. We are able to produce materials, aluminum extruded parts, which are used for the electric vehicles. They have very good application, especially for the first wave of the technology for the batteries, which were bigger batteries, and they needed support from really high performance materials to protect the batteries from a potential crash. We have a lot of experience with this kind of high performance material because we are using and producing actually for many years this kind of profiles that can absorb the energy during a crash. So-called safety parts, which are very important for all the OEMs, not only for the batteries, but it has a very good application now. I think we are now in a situation where, as Mr. Dusek also explained, things are being eased a little bit. The demand is not as expected in the very beginning. This is a challenge for everybody in the supply chain down the line. And I believe that we have all to adapt. But on the other hand, the industry from our side, let's say, and also speaking about the full supply chain, we have done our job and our homework. Let's say we have prepared a quite robust supply chain with a lot of capabilities behind, a lot of investments have been done. And I think this is, we have the readiness which is necessary in order to support such a boost. I understand that this cannot happen now in the pace that we were all expecting, but I think that with the proper support from the institutions in terms of support on investments, further investments, and also supporting the infrastructure as I think it's being done, it's under implementation, and I believe it has to go hand in hand with this easing for the OEMs from 1 year of 2025 to 3 years average. I believe it's in the same direction. So this is what we're expecting to see. And also in parallel, we are, we have to diversify a little bit and to be prepared from the next day. As you probably know, in the automotive industry, you cannot work from one day to the other. We are now working for projects in the next 3 years, 4 years, even 5 years sometimes. We work really close together with our partners and clients in order to develop materials and solutions for the future. And this is very important because now the technology is changing. The next generation batteries are going to be quite different. We have to adapt into this and to prepare the relevant products for this kind of applications. So we always look long term, and that's why we would like the relevant support because our business is really forward looking, and if things are changing on the way, we might have the risk to suffer meanwhile, right? So yeah, this is my initial let's say position. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. De Martino, Mr. Fountoukis didn't mention that they are producing extruded aluminum components for your newest model, the Q6. So what are your thoughts about the second wave of electrification?
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting question. First of all, I have to state that we as Volkswagen, the brand Audi, the brand Bentley, but also Porsche Holding Salzburg, we fully commit 100% to the European goals of climate protection targets. This is the basis of everything what I'm going to say today. So we in Volkswagen and Audi, we really see ourselves as a catalysator, first to transform ourselves, the production and the supply chain, but even more importantly, to provide the electric mobility to the whole world, basically. Yeah. So this is why we really play such an important role in the whole equation we talk about today. And as already was said before, yeah, if we really want to push the electric mobility, we need three things. First of all, we need the products. The products are there. We in Volkswagen invested already billions in the last 10 years in order to be ready when the electric mobility will hit. So the products are there. Do they have room for improvement? Yes, but the technology is still young and it will improve over the next 10, 20, maybe even 50 years, 100%. The second thing we need is infrastructure. The infrastructure in terms of charging stations, but not only, also in terms of a professional, very well established electricity grid. And I think this is exactly where we have a lot of potential in this part of Europe. Third thing that we need 100% are now the customers, because especially in Bulgaria, we face a pretty low demand of customers for our electric vehicles. We speak about the share of, let's say, around or even below 5%, and this is just not enough. So we, the public and the private sector together, have to find ways how we bring the people into the cars, because the statistics show us that 90%, even 95% of those people who try electric vehicles don't want to go back to the old internal combustion engine. So the road is clear. I would like to close my first statement today, something very clear and easy to understand. Last point. Green energy makes sense in this moment where we fuel green energy into our electric vehicles. Let me come to the point. As long as we put coal-fueled energy into an electric vehicle, this doesn't make sense. So the whole system, the whole way of working only works in the moment where we also put green energy into the cars that are on the street. Otherwise, it's just absurd.
I would like to use the opportunity that Mr. Tusik is still with us, because I agree with Mr. De Martino. Bulgaria is one of the few countries in Europe where we don't have any incentives for the normal customers for buying an electric cars. Yes, the market for electric cars is growing, but mostly with second-hand electric vehicles imported from Western Europe. But part of the strategic dialogue was also that there will be a common European incentive program for all of the citizens of the European Union. So there will be no, like the situation now, Romania has the highest incentive and Bulgaria has zero. Where is this currently moving? Can we expect it from next year?
Well, thank you for the question. Let me just come back to one of the comments that the previous speaker made about if you feed the electric car with electricity from coal, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, I would agree, to an extent in terms of climate. But of course, one additional feature of electric cars is that they don't pollute the local environment, and that's of particular importance in the cities and towns. That there is the air pollution component that is an additional advantage of transition to fully electric vehicles. But on your question about the common incentives, you are right that this is something which which is prerogative for each of the member states. They each do it in a different way, and this was discussed in the strategic dialogue. This is not, there's no decision yet whether there will be a European scheme. The problem is that for that European scheme or harmonization, there would need to be an agreement. And if you want a scheme, you would need to have the funds being put into that scheme. But even if we put, we put some recommendations, they are in place. But ultimately, this is something that that the national governments need to choose. And I mentioned a few options of the corporate fleets and public sector fleets and the different demand side measures, plus incentives for citizens in terms of social advantages, like France has, for instance. So at the moment, there is no agreement to have a pan-European mechanism. Now, this is work in progress. As I said, in September there will be a second discussion in the strategic dialogue, and I believe that the minimum is to learn from one another and to see which solutions can work in which countries, and let's see if there is a desire for a common European framework.
Thank you very much. So we will use the opportunity in September to push a little bit in that direction, as those incentives are not very high on the agenda of our governments at the moment. So speaking about policy, I would like to go to Mr. Petr Vitanov. We did a lot of moves about green transportation with him in the past. So what are your thoughts about this second wave of electrification?
Thank you, Lubo, for the opportunity. Well, I have quite a lot of thoughts, to be honest. I feel kind of uncomfortable among the automotive sector because I don't give, I do not represent any labor force, so it's kind of weird to be part of the legislation of the policy. But one thing I cannot agree with with Mario, because the general idea is not to bring the customer back to the car, but rather than to make him or her use the public transportation as well. So the idea behind the green transition in the transport is not to replace the internal combustion engine with the electric, although I'm a big fan of the electric vehicle myself. So this was just a hint. Well, of course, and speaking about the national incentives, I think that Mr. Dušik mentioned the Social Climate Fund, and I was one of the rapporteurs on this, and I think that there is a whole bunch of money that can be used for such incentive within the scope of this fund. On one hand, but on the other hand, I think that you are absolutely right, that you need institutions hand in hand with the business in order to prolong this second wave of electrification. And I think that generally we are facing quite a lot of challenge to do so. For instance, I mentioned in your preliminary questions that you were talking about the alignment of battery production and recycling process, and I see that a lot of challenges there, because to me the battery production is leaping forward compared to the recycling process, and this creates a bottleneck and creates a lot of challenges in developing the battery production process because of the poor recycling, the expensive, the risky recycling, and so on. But of course, I also think that we have certain strategies, I mean, on a European level, that can booster the production of electric vehicles. On one hand, we have the Critical Raw Material Act, or generally the raw material strategy, and we have the EU battery regulation, which is absolutely crucial for the move of the moving forward of the production of electric vehicle. And of course, in terms of competitiveness with third countries, this is also an interesting topic, but I leave it for next one, for maybe my next introduction, because I think that this is the key problem, and the proper management of, on one hand, transition, the green transition itself, and relations with Chinese manufacturers can give us the necessary benefit.
Thank you. You spoke about the public transport, and moving to our next panelist, Mr. Krstev, Christian Krstev, I would like to ask him, actually I think the real disruption of the electric vehicle is the following. We had here, many of you know, a strike in the public transport in Sofia a few weeks ago, where for a few days there was basically no public transport except the metro. And then we had a discussion with a lot of friends and professionals that actually the cheapest way to go around Sofia, it's supposed to be a year card for the public transport, which normally costs 1 level per day or €0.5 per day. But actually, if you own an electric car, because also the prices of the electricity, especially in the night in Bulgaria, are the lowest in Europe, so actually it makes a lot of sense to use an electric car, you can drive around the city for less than half of that in a personal car. So I think this is quite a big disruption actually, and it was not possible to think in the past. So, Mr. Krstev?
Yeah, hi, I agree with you, but we are speaking only about the cars. Mr. Vitanov mentioned about the public transportation, which is actually something that we have to focus for. And before going there, we have to remember that we are in Bulgaria. And Bulgaria is, I truly believe that is a sleeping giant on the Balkans, because we are fortunate to stand on the crossroad of 3 continents. And we have to use this advantage as a country itself, first of all. And then to discuss about the electrification and transport and green mobility. Yes, of course, the green mobility should not be discussed only for the cars, but the public transportation is very important. And going there, I should mention about the railway transport, because this is something that is very important for the country itself. Unfortunately, Bulgaria, being part of EU, doesn't have a single mile of high-speed railway transport, which actually should be the backbone of the economy, because if the stronger railway infrastructure and transportation we have, the stronger economy is going to be. So we have to focus there, because at the end of the day, every car should be or could be transferred by rail to any point in Europe and worldwide, and it could be much cheaper and more efficient. So this perspective, together with the public transportation city-wise, should be considered and should be discussed as well. So yes, I agree with you, but that the labor cost and you know, the strikes we used to have here, I don't think that this is a solved issue. This is just a postponed issue. And this is something that should be discussed together with the mayor and the municipality and the local parliament, and not only. And it is easy to night time to drive with the electric car. It's much cheaper, but at the end of the day, the traffic itself is also an issue. So the more number of cars or vehicles, because we should discuss not only about cars but vehicles, the number of vehicles is also issue, because in one bus you could have 40 plus people, but if you reduce those number of vehicles in the traffic, first of all, the noise and everything else, we have pollution of air, all the stress it creates, the more cars in the traffic, the risk that there are more vehicles on the road, this is a big issue. So the more we are focused on having solutions and to reduce the number of the vehicles on the road is something important for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about electrical mobility, but we have also representative, so Mr. Konstantinos, Motor Oil Group. How is Motor Oil Group contributing for the development of the zero-emission mobility infrastructure in Europe?
Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here and be listening to all this situation that has been described about Bulgaria. Some of the problems are common, some challenges are also common, but there's also some experience that we can share. First of all, allow me to say that probably the most important thing is networks, road networks, electricity networks, grids, infrastructure that unite us. And then that would take me to a question that who among us would take an electric car from Bucharest or Sofia to go to the beautiful Greek islands to spend his vacations without knowing or without knowing where he could be electrified. So these questions are there to be answered. I represent a group of companies that we started from a traditional conventional fuels. We exporting to more than 80 countries around the globe, traditional fuels. But now we are investing, we have a very ambitious program of investing of 4 billion euros in resilience, but also in low carbon fuels. We are the first to build in Greece, and that happened only last week, the first hydrogen refueling station near our refinery. And we are providing green hydrogen that we bought from Austria, from a production unit there. But next year, we'll be in position to provide our own green hydrogen that we'll be producing in our refinery. We are also the first to build a 480 kilowatts EV charger in Athens, the fastest in Greece currently. And to that perspective, we have used a lot of EU funding from different means, like Innovation Fund, Connecting Euro Facility Transport, the loans from European Investment Bank, and other tools, in order to co-finance these infrastructures that, from our side, from the producer and energy provider, still they are not profitable. As I told you, we built the first hydrogen refueling station knowing that we will be there without having customers for the first 3-4 years. And although somebody could say that, you know, the EU funding is generous, it's 50%, we will be having huge OPEX expenses, maintaining the assets, having every year the certifications we need, people to work there, and this without any profit. And that is to say that it's not only about funding CAPEX, now we need funding for OPEX, and we need funding for end users. Correctly, it was said that now we have to fund fleets, and because we have said a lot about electrification, our view is that the future cannot be really pre-decided. We see that it will be multi-energy future. Somewhere electrification makes sense, like in short distances. Somewhere hydrogen could make sense in longer distances with heavier vehicles. Somewhere, and if the death valley of internal combustion engines pre-described by Brussels, biofuels could make sense. So we need to see where each fuel applies. But for sure, from our side, it was also said, we are now developing our own renewable energy sources portfolio. We have in operation 840 megawatts, and we plan to arrive to 2 gigawatts by the end of the decade. And we are providing green energy to our EV chargers. And this is working because it is in our ecosystem. So all these are ideas, and again, and I hope to have the opportunity to discuss further afterwards about the need to cooperate among us, Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, because it's for the benefit of our people, but also for our companies, for our economies, to create this corridor to arrive to Central Europe and make better living for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. We will continue with, we have 3 more panelists, but before that, I would like to go to our second keynote speech coming from Ms. Fabry from Jacques Delors Institute. She led a report about the relation between EU and China, and because our second part is for the trade wars, I think it's the right time to listen to the results of your report. Sorry for the delay.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation to join you this afternoon. I would have also preferred to be with you in Sofia. In fact, I'm going to focus on the not so much on the reports on EU-China that we published recently, but on the report that we published in January, on the which was focused on the transition of the European automotive industry. It's a report that we started working on a year ago in May 24 with my colleagues Pascal Lamy, Arantxa González, Victor do Prado, and other colleagues from the institute, which was based on more than 70 interviews of European OEMs and suppliers all across Europe, but also Chinese and US OEMs. So you can imagine like BYD and Tesla were among the panels. And it was focused on a very large sample of, all the stakeholders of this industry, precisely to be able to analyze different interests, different positioning in this transition, while it is an overbroad. I mean, it's a very European concern. It's not only some member states, but it's a very disseminated industry with long supply chains. So we have to consider that it's really a European public interest. And our starting point was that we have over-focused on sustainability with the sticks, the objectives of the way they were rather built on sticks and with the targets of 2035, and with an insufficient attention on competitiveness and economic security. And that's why it is obvious. I mean, we obviously need to considerate all the challenges that have been already discussed and detailed in the broad international framework, and notably since we published our report in January, just before the strategic dialogue, with the increasing concerns that we have in the transatlantic side, in addition to the ones that we have in our coming from the Chinese competition. So let me focus on 3 elements that are essential in our analysis. The first one, of course, are those geopolitical realities. The second one is the need for a Green Deal 2.0, and we already have some elements in the conclusion of the strategic dialogue in the action plan, and on competitiveness and resilience. I'm just going to show you some slides of the reports. So if you can start exactly presenting the slides. I'll be quick because there's too much in this report, and as you are all professionals of the automotive industry, you know already some elements of this analysis. First, concerning the mapping of the European supply chain and the market share that we have, how the market share are distributed in the European market, the Chinese market, and the US market, as it is like the big the geographical triangle on which we need to focus, while we need to assess what are the trade-offs that need to be done between decarbonization, competitiveness, and economic security. So if you look at this first slide, you see that Europe is the decisive competitive arena, as the North American market was closed already and remains, and even is increasingly closed by Trump's tariffs. But you see that in the North American market, the Japanese and the Koreans are dominating the ICE market. and it is obviously close to the Chinese EV imports, but even the Europeans are not have not a big share in the EV sector yet. China is increasingly self-sufficient, not only in the EV sector, but increasingly those past years in the ICE sector. While in Europe, it has remained a very localized production, but we already see in this graph, which is comparing the data between until 2023, that we see the arrival of the Chinese imports of EVs. In the second slide, in the next slide, exactly. You see, this is an illustration of the diversity of interest between within the sample of the main European OEMs, with notably the German companies, which have had those past years increasing share in the Chinese market, in the ICE production, but also in the EV production. And even if recently those shares have been reduced, the fact that they have attained some percentage of 30 or 40% and cannot be substituted by any promising markets. And we see that India is very far away from being able to compensate any loss in the Chinese market. Remaining in the Chinese market remains central, and is waiting. And this is really waiting in the position of the European OEMs on the strategy to make the single market as well a more attractive market. While other companies, like as you see here, like Stellantis of Renault, have really moved back from the Chinese market, and rather calling for more protection in the EU market, because they are not so exposed to the what would be Chinese retaliation measures. In the next slide. The big question that we had is that if switching from the ICE production to the EV production, it would have an impact on the fact that it remained, as I just previously said, a very localized production for domestic demand, with increasing capacity of Chinese exporter to turn towards more export-oriented strategy. And until now, what we see is that even in the EV market, this localization of production and sales is even more important, and most probably the impact of the European additional duties on the Chinese exports is confirming this trend. As you can see, you have more than 80% of the Chinese production that is sold in China for the EVs, 90% in the US, 78% in the EU, and because for security concerns, the weight of the batteries and the cost of transportation, this should be limiting a switch of strategy toward more exports. But once again, the increasing duties on imports in the EU had already had an impact those past months. The last slide that I want to show is what has been already underlined, the link between infrastructure and sales. And we see that there's a risk of important gap within the EU between 1,000 countries, Eastern countries, and the rest of Europe. And this is really a huge concern. The main priority for the competitiveness of OEMs and suppliers, if we take all the different actors, is to increase the economy of scales of the European market. And we have too much fragmentation in regulation, too much discrepancies in the demand, one of the panelists insisted on the demand. This is really a major issue for the to speed up this transition, because we have analyzed also the profitability of OEMs and suppliers, and for the past 10 years the profitability has been very important. It's the transition towards EV and the efforts in R&D that came pretty late, and now that is really exposing European companies to the Chinese competition and Chinese innovation. And so if today we first need to focus on how to anticipate the geopolitical challenges on the Chinese side, on the US side, and we need to acknowledge that there's no possibility to decouple from the Chinese market in terms of to increase more strategic autonomy and to diminish the dependency that we have on Chinese supply in critical minerals and the refining capacity. We will need to secure a political agreement, like exactly what the US have been doing in the last week. It was one of the proposals that we put forward in our report. But preserving an access to the European market would need to be conditioned on the avoiding to weaponize the exports of refined minerals to the EU. And there's one proposal that was in the report that has been also mentioned in the action plan, which is the need to add some local content requirements to the Chinese investment in the EU. The main challenge that we're facing today is the brutal Chinese innovation capacity in autonomous driving, but also in the battery field. More range, less costs. I mean, this innovation capacity is a challenge for the automotive industry. It is a challenge for other industry, and starting thinking about adding some conditionality on Chinese investments as a counterparty of access to the European market and no weaponization of critical mineral exports should be on the table at the next summit in July, the EU-Chinese summit, and this is an important issue as it is relying on member states' coordination. It is not so much a European initiative, but it would be at the level of the member states. Obviously, concerning the EU-US negotiation, this is going to be very complex because the automotive issue will be exposed to an overlapping impact of a more critical confrontation, which has to see with the non-tariff barriers that the US is targeting and would like the Europeans to be diluting on the European side. And those non-tariff barriers are not for negotiation, and it won't be easy to succeed negotiating any reduction of the tariffs for the Europeans. But I'm being too long already, so if you allow me just one additional minute, I want to insist on the measures that we have. That we were presenting precisely to increase the competitiveness and the economic security of the European automotive industry. I already mentioned the efforts that should be developed to increase the infrastructure charging network in Europe, and it should be based on a mix of it could be based on a mix of public and private investment, also with more investment coming from the OEMs themselves, and not only relying on member states or EU funding. Consumer subsidies. You just mentioned that about the lack of financial support in Bulgaria, but consumer subsidies, we have seen the impact that it had in some markets, and when they were suspended, like in Germany, consumer subsidies are fundamental to precisely increase the economy of scale of this demand in the EU, and enable the Europeans to increase their production capacity and to face the Chinese competition. The efforts are already presented in the action plan about more to reduce regulatory fragmentation. This is important, but there should be more investment in the R&D sector to enable to find some alternatives to the LFP technologies and to the dependency to the Chinese battery imports, and to emphasize the market scale commercialization. This is also a weak point in our system. The initiatives that are presented in the action plan concerning the adaptation of the social climate fund to increase or to support the transition of the reskilling of the labor force in Europe is going in the right direction, and this is a very important and good step. I was very pleased to listen to Jan Dusik and mentioning that there would be a phase 2 in the strategic dialogue, because we have seen that it has been a very short process. It has succeeded to put the stakeholders around the table, but we need to move forward, and notably to target what is a very weak point still a weak point in the action plan, which is the funding capacity that need to support this transition. I will just conclude by mentioning that we were proposing more than 35 policy options in the report, and would suggest to have a look at the report, which is in free access on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was really, really interesting. So as we are really ahead of time, I would suggest that we join our next 2 rounds about the other 2 disruptions which are happening at the moment. So of course, number 2 is the trade wars, which are really making the predictions for all of the companies really complicated. And number 3 is the software development, the software-defined vehicle, the big techs, which are trying to take over the automotive industry. So I would like to continue with our next panelist, Mr. Ivo Tsachev from Total Energies. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you hear me? Yes. I'll come back a step before, because we've discussed a lot about electrification, we've discussed a lot about public transport, and I fully agree with Mr. Kirstev. The public transportation has to be the backbone of the mobility of the people. Unfortunately, we do not see this in Europe today, not only in Bulgaria, and we see an expanding need of personal mobility. The personal mobility, as agreed, need to be clean, and we are today in the second phase of electromobility. The good news is that the second phase is much faster than the first phase, and we have much better cars. And I will share my experience from the company side worked and I'm working for. I've worked for the biggest utility in Europe, E.ON. I'm working today for Total Energies, one of the biggest oil and gas companies. What happened in the past and why we are on the already behind the turning point for electrification and for new ways of mobility and new ways of production of cars. First, both giants are investing fully in new infrastructure for mobility. Second is the experience from Total Energies. As a major oil and gas companies, 2 years ago, Total Energies sold all their fuel stations in Europe. Because today we see that even with a small portion of sold new electric vehicles, the margins and the income at the fuel stations is dropping down compared to 5 years ago. So for the oil and gas companies and for the energy companies, it doesn't make any sense more to support the old industry and not to support the new automotive industry on its way forward. So again, we are on the turning point. There is no way back, and we will see more and more clean and efficient mobility on the streets. Another point was, where comes the energy? And is the grid a backbone? Showstopper, sorry. No, we see clean energy. We have, even in Bulgaria, there is a boom of PV, there is a boom of cheap electricity, there is a boom of storage. The grid was never a showstopper for new mobility. And with the dropping pricing of energy today, we will see that this trip around Sofia when the public transportation is striking will be even cheaper and cheaper, because if you have an own PV or PV on your own roof, you can even you can drive for zero money. And all these kind of developments and disruptions we see on the market, they are very dependent on the digitalization, because without proper software, without proper digitalization, we will never achieve the scale of the new mobility, and we will never be able to combine the energy world with the mobility world. It doesn't matter, is it for public transportation, is it for the personal transportation. And here I will give the word to Peter from Ampeco. It's really very nice to meet him. I haven't seen you last few years, but today in Bulgaria we have a leading provider of software for infrastructure, and Ampeco are really changing the world today, and they are serving and working with really big companies across Europe, so you can share your experience.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ivo. Definitely, it's been a while since we last spoke, and the industry has changed a lot since then. As you said, we moved to the next step where right now we see, businesses really betting strong on investing in infrastructure, be it public or private. Today, I represent here Ampeco. We are one of the main software providers for charging management. So think of all the companies that operate infrastructure, be it some of them oil and gas companies, other can be pure play charging point operators, other can be energy utilities or parking operators, housing associations, all the different use cases. Sometimes we forget about all those different use cases of charging because we look only at the public, but in fact, it's around 90+% that is private, that we don't see really in the streets. Of course, we need to get the public infrastructure right so that we're talking about mass adoption. And I think the industry is getting there. One of my other hats, apart from being part of the Ampeco team, I'm the vice chair of the policy committee at Charge Up Europe. This is the Brussels-based association that represents the whole industry. And we see that, two of the main strong points of our industry today is first, new jobs, and second, really bringing all the economic benefits that come with EV charging. So we're not only talking about energy management and everything we can do with the charger being an active energy participant, but also implementing specialized tariffs, making sure that companies can profit out of the right payment and billing solutions that they implement. It's a wide array of functionalities that are connected to the charger, and ultimately that brings economic value. Ivo, thanks for the mention. Indeed, we see ourselves as one of the leaders, and we're from Bulgaria. We are HQ'd here, but we now have operations in 67 countries globally, and by far that makes us the broadest, widely used software. Think of Salesforce, but for EV charging. So this is essentially what we're trying to build, also a marketplace of added value. And we see that added value really growing strong in Europe. We're not the only one in Europe, but by far, Europe is the leader when it comes to software and EV charging. And I would also argue in hardware as well. Some of the best hardware manufacturers are in Europe. So going back to the second discussion you mentioned on China, I think Europe has a very, very good lead, and we should not take a step back, but rather we should double down on that.
Thank you. Yes, Ampeco has attracted some very interesting investments during the years, and if I remember correctly, one of them came from BMW. We have another software guy.
It's BMW Ventures.
Yeah,
the venture capital arm.
Thank you. We have another software guy in the panelists, Mr. Wavrov. What do you see? What are the disruptions, according to you, in front of the automotive industry?
Well, definitely China is a big topic and challenge for the auto industry. There, if you ask me, we shall not fight with China. We should try to cooperate with them. And this will help the industry grow. They are already stepping in Europe, investing. So this will help boost some innovation, bring some innovation. We have a huge gap compared to what they can offer at the moment. And in order to catch up with what is going on, we should try to ease, I would say, the regulations we have here in Europe. Otherwise, it will be actually a bloody war, because we will not be able to catch up. In terms of what are doing the big giants, yes, they want to step in. Everyone wants to have a piece of the pie and have some revenue coming to them. So, Lubo, I guess you're referring to Apple. They announced last year, and already we have something on the street there. So Android Automotive is also already since years on the streets. So everyone will be there. For example, to compare Chinese OEMs, some of them already developed their own operating systems, and they decided to make them open source, which will boost their economy there and the competition among them. We don't see yet this here in Europe, and maybe this is a point to be considered.
Thank you, Nikolai. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised because it doesn't matter. We are talking about second wave of electrification. We are talking about the trade wars, or even about the software. Always China somehow came out of those discussions. Mr. Vitanov, what you can say about all of this? Is it China frightening or inspiring? What is your outcome?
From my personal experience and among my colleagues in the European Parliament, there were two approaches towards China. For some, China was a partner, to some extent a reliable partner, but to some other colleagues, definitely an enemy. So, but I must agree with Mr. Lavrov by saying that if we fight with China, we might end up undermining the whole process of decarbonization in the transportation because of the high prices. Other than that, I must agree with the policy towards China on one hand, because we see two-layer policy. On one hand, we have something that sounds maybe old, but the protectionist measures, and we all know the tariffs after the report of the European Commission in 2023. So we imposed some tariffs, 21% in addition to those 10 that we have. But on the other hand, and I think that this is maybe a good way to mitigate the Chinese effect in EV manufacture. But also, on the other hand, we should strengthen the European industry. How? By realization the need of industrial strategy to support the domestic EV production on one hand, stimulating, like I said in the beginning, stimulating the investment in EU battery production. I think that this is the key element. Also promoting innovations, reskilling, upskilling. So these are bold pillars that may assure to Europe the competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming back to Mr. Konstantinos, how do you see the future of mobility, and what are the main challenges in front of the industry?
Yeah, just to add to the discussion about digitalization, because we are currently managing 1,500 EV chargers in Greece, what we see as a future challenge and a threat, and this is not that futuristic, is cybersecurity aspects. We are talking about a system that is feeding energy thousands of cars that could be turned into potential bombs around the cities. And this is not far away to think about and consider. We are working on EU R&D programs to build protection and to see potential threats that could go through the EV chargers. This is not to threaten you and add one more consideration about EV charging, but this will come up in the future. Now, about the future of clean mobility, as I said before, we believe that there is no single solution. We will see a future where we will have different fuels, different type of energy for different type of application. But what for sure we need is cooperation and coordination among the companies, the private sector, but also the public sector. I remember that 1.5 years ago, the 3 ministers of Greece, Romania and Bulgaria, they signed an MOU, and among others, it was the topic of transportation that was in focus, to build common infrastructures, electromobility, hydrogen. I don't think that any follow-up has occurred ever since. And this is something that I think it's time for the private sector to take on its hands, to sit down and see how we can, support building these infrastructures. This will come anyways in the future. It was mentioned before, the regulation, the AFIR regulation, obliges member states to have every 100, 200 kilometers EV chargers, hydrogen refueling stations. So we need to coordinate, we need to have a common plan, and this, I'm afraid, it will not come from the states. It will come from the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's continue with Mr. De Martino. So how do you see the future? Probably the trade wars are not so important about your work here in Bulgaria, but they influence the industry in general. And of course, the software story is the biggest story of the automotive industry.
So I would say that I agree. The software topic is definitely a very important one. But I missed one very important slide in Mrs. Fabri's presentation. And I remember one slide of the report where it was shown which region in the world contributes on which level of value creation in the whole value chain. And what was very clearly seen there is that where Europe at the moment is not playing a role basically at all, is in having the critical minerals for the batteries and also how to transform these minerals into batteries that we can use. I think that this is, for me, from a more industrial point of view, the biggest pain point in the whole equation. I think this is really where Europe needs to wake up. I think the United States did some bold movements into this direction, but this gives China the competitive advantage over Europe, from my perspective. It's how to build batteries. This is where we need to get better, and this is where the European Union needs to find ways, once again, together with the business sector, in order to not lose the track. Yeah? Because this is where we lose our competitiveness, and this is where we are going to lose the jobs in Europe if we don't find new ways to cooperate with China, because honestly, we are already behind. So fighting that, I don't see us in a position to fight that. We need to collaborate in order to learn from them how to build these batteries.
Thank you. Just a reflection of what you just said. So, as I told you, last week we had the International Automotive Forum, and over there, one of the biggest OEMs in Europe, his global corporate director, he said that Europe currently has to focus on the LFP batteries, and this is what we had just heard from Ms. Fabri, as currently 100% of them are produced in China and basically zero in Europe. And this is the new, it's basically not new, but the modern technology which was basically pushed by BYD, and now all of the companies started to use this chemistry. The only thing I can say, luckily also the automotive cluster is working on that since 1.5 years, and hopefully there will be such projects. But yes, battery technologies are very, very important. And talking about that, we started with Mr. Fontouchis from ETEM Gestam. They are basically building the construction, the structure of the battery cases, the aluminum battery cases. What is your view of the future? I know that you're involved in many of the upcoming projects, which are still basically secret, but what do you see, what is coming?
I think the Chinese factor, just to build on the arguments of the other speakers, I fully agree with what they said. So basically, we need to cooperate with the Chinese. It's a reality. They're coming to invest in Europe. First of all, they have the interest to sell cars in Europe because in China there is a price pressure, so they need the European market to sell their cars. Finally, they are deciding now that one of the best options is to come and invest here. So I think the example of what the Chinese manufacturers actually did in China, that they required some, they took some measures for the Europeans to go there and invest. They requested to be in joint investments there, and also they actually acquired some important technology from the German OEMs especially. I think we need to follow a similar example. I think it was mentioned from by Ms. Fabri also, that it has to be on the negotiation table in the next summit, how this is going to happen for the Chinese investments here in Europe. So I believe we have to cooperate with them. It has to be European content in these cars, in the Chinese cars. I believe there are companies that are capable of doing this. I mean, for us also being in the Gestam group, we have the Chinese experience because Gestam is present in China many years, and also we know the European reality, and we have the capability to build high performance and good products for them. I believe, as a closing remark from my side, that things are going to happen in a slower mode, as we have realized. A combination of technologies is going to be happening, like the hydrogen or sustainable fuels, together with of course plug-in hybrids and also EVs that are coming eventually for sure. I believe it will take a little bit more time, but things will happen with electromobility to be there. And for sure, this electric energy has to come from greener sources, for sure. And I think it's happening also in parallel in a slower pace, but it's happening. We saw the map that here in Eastern Europe we're a little bit behind, but I think it's happening as well. So I believe it takes, we need to be very flexible and adaptable to the situation in order to survive of all this difficult situation, which is also caused by the geopolitical difficulties and the trade wars. But I think eventually the most adaptable, as always, will survive and thrive also.
So thank you very much. Yes, I started with that. The future is inspiring, but also a little bit frightening. Thank you very much to everybody. We are already 12 minutes behind the schedule. I think it was a very interesting discussion, and I hope next year we'll have a little bit more time so we can go deeper into the automotive industry. Thank you very much.